It has been another slow day for uranium, but we know what's coming. They're saying we're in the eye of the hurricane for uranium stocks, and there has been no volume in the spot market recently. We're going to talk about that, what it means, what's about to come. We're going to look at some of the charts. We're also going to talk about Germany. They are keeping on the 3 nuclear power plants. This is uranium demand that nobody really accounted for. I think this is going to continue this trend. And we'll talk about mergers and acquisitions again. Got a lot of comments in my Discord across the web, on Twitter, here on YouTube for what mergers are coming next. We'll talk about that. And thank you so much for the last video. You guys almost got 1,000 likes. This one we definitely can get 1,000 likes, but give your like number and what uranium stock you think is going to have the biggest upside in the next few months when uranium prices start to rise again. Now we saw 11-year highs from Cameco and UEC. So what's next? What's going to be the next big runner? If we go back to September of last year, the 52-week highs and 11-year highs for a lot of them as well, 10, 11 years. What's next? So give your like number and what stock in uranium is going to have the biggest upside next. So the first thing we'll talk about is Sprott Physical Uranium Trust. Now what's coming? Well, the fall refueling cycle is coming. And we saw the biggest record volume last year in September for spot buying. And this is 14.5 million pounds in the spot market. But what do we got now? We haven't had hardly any buying in the past couple weeks, right? August 3rd was the last time 100,000 pounds was listed here, and they hold that uranium still. So Greg Peel wrote this. He said, you know, it's summer when not one transaction was reported in either uranium spot or term markets the last week. So as we've been talking about, the summertime, it's usually flat. Okay, new budgets are coming in, especially for the government, you know, the end of September, the 1st of October, and we see these refueling cycles start in the United States, you know, usually in spring and fall. And fall is when we saw the biggest run up last year, right? And I think it's very possible that happens again. Now, TradeTech's weekly spot price indicator remained unchanged. We're still about that $48 mark, $53 long term. And we've had a lot of things. And just as this article said, the U.S. Inflation Reduction Act, the House passed. Now Biden's supposed to sign it today. And this is going to really help nuclear power plants. All of these coal plants that are shutting down could be turned into nuclear power plants as well. And a lot of people are not seeing that there's going to be a big demand if those plants shift, as well as other plants getting extensions like we've seen. And the article also talks about what we've been talking about, the Russian supply, okay, of uranium, how that enrichment could get hemmed up very soon. And as someone said, this is like the eye of the hurricane where it's very calm. There's really nothing going on. And we see that buying volume come in and boom, it goes up. Now, next thing, before we get into the charts a little bit and talk about kind of what I think is going to about to happen, UEC and UEX, they did approve the merger. The arrangement resolution was passed with 90% of votes cast by UEX holders in a meeting, person or by proxy. And it was 91% voted, which is great. So UEX expects to apply for the final order of the Supreme Court of British Columbia for approval of the arrangements on or about August 18th. I believe that's Thursday. And assuming the satisfaction or waiver of all the customary closing conditions and subject to the receipt of all relevant regulatory and court approvals, the arrangement is expected to close on or about on August 19th, which I believe is Friday. All the charts are looking very similar. The bigger charts, Cameco, Energy Fuels, and UEC. Now, the overall markets are down today. The crude oil was down almost like 3%. And we saw a lot of them bounce up and down 3-4%. But this is just setting up really right where I wanted it to be, right in the cup and handle. This handle's really starting to form. And I want to show you when these tweets came out, what was going on and how the stock performed. And obviously when technicals meet catalyst, it's everything. And this, when it did almost an 18% move in one day here, this is when Biden administration proposed the plan to transition away from Russian nuclear fuel. And the DOE asked Congress for the $3.5 billion of LEU and uranium conversion. So they want uranium. The US government wants uranium and they want to support it. So U.S. uranium producers did really well. Now, but right before that, we were at one of the lows right after our last run up. And the uranium stocks, I said, continue to follow the overall market in a falling wedge and a downtrend pattern. Probable we see a breakout soon in uranium unyoked from the market. And it happened. And we saw a big breakout and we started this cup and handle. Now, this cup and handle, like I said, it's looking really good. We're bouncing around in this handle. These uranium stocks are usually not the typical 5% from the high. They're usually 10% I've seen before they break out. But we have a lot of catalysts coming in September into next month and possibly October. And you know, all that buying in spot, could it all start coming back in September? We haven't really seen anything in a week. It's been very flat. And when uranium was back at its low again last month, I was saying that, you know, 700 million pounds of long-term record uranium contracting is coming, and it's going to get exciting in this refueling season, as I said. And the stock done really well, right? 35% from there, little more maybe from the very bottom. I put this tweet out here. You know, we started the cup and handle, and it's bouncing around in here. And we need the volume. We need the overall market to hopefully do well, you know, as this sets up. But it's not necessary. We still have a lot of catalysts, and if uranium prices start to run up, as we've seen, uranium could unyoke again from the overall market and energy, but it's still yoked right now, okay? You can see that with the prices. Like I said, a lot of these have been bouncing around all day, you know, 3, 4, 5% down, and then now they're kind of flat. Cameco is green now. But the NASDAQ has dropped. You know, we had that big run the last month or so, and, you know, it's been really good. It's been, you know, really good for the overall market, this nice recovery, but is it a dead cat bounce? There's a lot of bullish people out there. Honestly, don't care. I'm going to trade it either way. I'm going to take advantage of the volatility. Now, this UEC deal, hopefully it closes on this Friday because it is phenomenal. Now, I really want to kind of just touch quickly on what they'll be getting. So I didn't want to get my hopes up before. I've been covering UEX for a long time. You guys know. And there was a lot of shenanigans that went on, but 5 production joint venture projects UEC will be adding. Ownership of 6 of the 10 Canadian development projects. 3 of the 6 are tier 1 projects, and 3 of the 4 are tier 2 projects. And obviously this exposes UEC to the highest uranium grades in the world. Now this is the uranium grade up here. This is Phoenix, right? And this is the amount of pounds. Now all of these with the symbol on it, all of these are now going to be UECs, okay? And a lot of these are joint ventures. And what's phenomenal about this is look at this uranium grade and look at how many pounds. That's very big. This is something arrow, like, you know, this is a positive arrow that everyone says that eventually once this comes on near the end of the decade, it's going to flood the market if they ever do. But look at some of the sizes of some of these other assets that they have. It's really very impressive. And then look at the market cap per pound of U3O8 with their combined resources at $1. You look at it, this will obviously knock down UEC. And this was not adding in UEC's new assets of Uranium 1 either. So this number is actually very inaccurate. And it will go down not only because of the UEX assets, but the Uranium 1 assets. They've added so much value for shareholders, and it's very, very impressive. You look at some of the competitors, you might see over here some other buyout targets possibly. A lot of you were saying Anfield. I've been saying that for a while. You know, it's an M&A company, and no one's really took the bait yet on that. No one's wanted to buy the company out. Now, here's another visual of kind of the Athabasca Basin and, you know, some of their projects that you can see the percentage of ownership that they have. You know, Cameco, Orano, these companies are very big companies. You know, Wheeler River, Denison has as well, the joint venture. So a lot of these assets, you know, will they all get up during this uranium bull market? Probably not all of them, but it is very possible. But it does show that really things are changing. We're going to that next round. We're about to be out of that hurricane eye. And right now, you know, everything in the whole world is pointing towards nuclear. Germany to keep last 3 nuclear plants running in policy U-turn. This move, prompted by the mounting economic war with Russia, marks the first departure from a 2-decade policy to abandon nuclear energy. Now, 6 months ago, people asked me, they're like, what do you think about this? Well, Germany keeping these 3 up, I mean, look at what they're actually would have had to replace. 6 nuclear plants that were going to be shut down. You know, in Germany, visualize, this is a lot of, you know, replacements. It costs a lot of money, a lot of REEs. And people ask me, what do I think about this? And so uranium has been an Eastern play on demand, right? That's what it's always been. The last 6 months, it's shifted the West back to nuclear. And this sparked a nuclear energy renaissance. And that's why my thesis has changed so much. And I need to do a video on my new thesis and why I value certain uranium stocks now way different than I would have 6+ months ago. Things have changed dramatically. We're seeing the California governor of all people proposes legislation to keep Diablo Canyon nuclear power plant open and want to give them $1.4 billion. This is a total paradigm shift, okay? And although we have seen a pullback in uranium stocks, look at where we're at. These are the top gainers in uranium stocks. Now, some of these are low market cap uranium stocks. Some of these, you can see that they're still up in the last month. Now, are there some undervalued stocks down here? There probably are. And just as UEX was not too long ago, there are some, and I think especially in the United States, that have good assets that are down a bunch, right? After this last pullback, back last September, 45, 46%, 52%. That means these have 100% upside, 52%, just back to those 52-week highs. So do we get this September buying volume in the spot market? It's probable. Now, thank you guys. Like I said, last video, you commented a bunch of your ideas, and I'll go through them, and then we'll talk about the overall market. Now, I will make a longer video about this because you guys commented. I do want to give you exposure a little bit and kind of see what you guys think. You can comment below what uranium stock, especially out of these, do you think has the biggest upside, and maybe the one that gets the most talked about, then I will actually cover it. Energy Fuels by Laramide. So I think that is, it's always on the table. I think one that Energy Fuels could be looking at is Anfield Energy, and UEC also could be looking at Anfield Energy. So Peninsula is one. Now Peninsula, I think UR Energy is a very good candidate for a merger, for an equal merger across the board. The CEO, Wayne Healy, he was the CEO of UR Energy and got their ISR uranium assets up. Another one, Encore Energy. Now Encore Energy was one of those ones that I was telling you about that has a trove of uranium assets from the US. And they don't have this picture out anymore, but I will show it. And here it is. And this is all of the assets that they have just waiting that, are in these purgatory phase that they could get up and possibly get permits for. So keep an eye on Encore for sure, another US company. Now, by the way, guys, if it has a little red mark here, it means you subscribe to me. So if you're on this channel and you're not subscribed, you should just hit the subscribe button below. I'm literally answering your questions for free. A lot of people charge for this. I'm taking my time to give it back to you guys. I really do appreciate you guys supporting my channel for the past few years. Thank you so much, by the way. So I'll answer your questions even if you're not subscribed, but come on, just subscribe to the channel. So Paul, you said the elephant in the room is the spot uranium price. When is it going to join the thesis? Now, Paul, the spot uranium price has been doing very well the past few years, right? Look at the bases here. Boom, we break out, we form another base. We break out, we form another base. We break out and we trace back a little bit. We have, this kind of looks like the overall market, the war, everything. But we are starting to see a push for nuclear. So when that refueling starts very soon, it is possible that the uranium price starts to break out. Remember, there's been really no volume recently. Hello, Derek, you still bullish on Deep Yellow as you were a few months ago? Yes, I'm more bullish on Deep Yellow now than I was then. But, obviously the market doesn't necessarily put a value on them yet. They are a developer. They still got to get those assets up. They're not like a producer that has permits handy and ready and could get in production like that. So that company, that management is doing phenomenal. I really do think John Borshoff's going to do really well this time. Albert, awesome commentary. You said, thank you so much for putting these awesome videos together. Well, Albert, go ahead and subscribe. You're not subscribed, man. All right, so I would like to see UEC and Anfield do an M&A. Anfield's your largest position. Please keep up the videos. All right, I think that Anfield has a big possibility to be the next target for UEC. Like I said earlier, it could be Energy Fuels, but I think they're wanting to stack up a lot of these assets. They've got that mill there, okay, in the US, one of 3 licensed mills. So I think that they bought that from Uranium One. It was like $100 million it had been bought for, that mill. So of course it's undervalued. Energy Fuels and Peninsula, very probable, as I said earlier. DD, you said keep up the good work. A lot of things happening in the sector. Thank you for sharing your experience and knowledge. Watch this space. If more people followed you instead of Kathy Wood, they would have not lost anything in the past 18 months. Well, I really appreciate that. Uranium stocks, in the past 18 months, 24 months have done phenomenal. So UEC and Peninsula, another one. I guess that's going to be one that I really need to do deep research on again. Thanks for subscribing, Amy. Thanks for commenting your numbers, you guys. Sheldon, you think Cameco is going to buy out NextGen? Wow, that would be crazy. Their market cap's already so massive, it's probably not possible. Mark, you said that Deep Yellow needs to get into more acquisitions and has the ability. Deep Yellow did. I mean, they got the Vimy merger just completed. So I think they're doing pretty well. He said solar flare, got hit with the solar flare, knocking out radio waves. Could affect the markets. I think that's very true. There's a lot of data actually going back to celestial stuff and how markets trade. It's very interesting, by the way. But fission is one out there. It's got a pretty large market cap. Some really high graded assets as well. I don't know if Energy Fuels would be looking into them. It is probable though. Maybe I'll do a little research on that. Fission and Denison or Energy Fuels acquires Western or Anfield. So the second one, I think Energy Fuels, that is one I've been saying for the past couple of years. Western Uranium, the founder actually founded Energy Fuels. So it is probable. I think he's on their board as well. And Anfield, as we've been saying. Chinese to take out GoviEx. The Chinese are very active there in Africa. It is very possible. UEC to acquire UR Energy. I haven't really thought too much about UEC acquiring them. Been thinking Peninsula maybe merge with them. It is possible. They've got those ISR assets. Very possible, actually. Cameco Next Gen. I just still don't see it. The last one, UEC and Encore. That'd be pretty interesting to see. As I said earlier, UEC is probably on the lookout for more assets, and Encore does have a lot of stuff. And Jerry, you said that thankful for the updates. Appreciate the efforts. I should set up a Patreon. There is a Patreon, and that gives access to everything. My Discord, all the data, by the way. So hopefully you got that link. You've heard uranium is a hot candidate for the Chinese. Of course it is. They got 150 reactors coming up. That is the elephant in the room. A lot of mines that are out there could be bought up by the Chinese and never see the Western market. And, the demand that we see coming, they could already start buying for. Some other ones, Sky Harbor, some of these ones in the Athabasca Basin, they probably are going to be targets for bigger companies like Denison that in the future, very near future, could be eyeing. Now, Denison, they're obviously wanting to buy something. So anything in the Athabasca Basin that's got some good assets or, good exploration upside, Denison's probably going to pounce on it, by the way. Same thing with baseload, Cameco to baseload. That is very possible. The CEO there, he found the Arrow deposit. So they've got a lot of good future going ahead of them. I think Cameco would be a good asset for them for sure. Michael Williams, he said Bannerman and Deep Yellow bought out by the uranium-hungry Chinese. It's always possible, like I said earlier, or Japan. But I don't think John Borshoff would sell out, obviously. I don't think he's going to sell out to anyone. They're going to get into production more than likely, just like last time. He's got a lot to prove. I don't think it's about money. John Borshoff was worth $200 million at one point. I don't think this is about money. He's a geologist. He loves to get into production, obviously. And I think he has something to prove this last uranium bull market, his last one for sure. And IQ Pug, yes, the summer's almost over, and thank you for subscribing. Thank you guys for commenting, by the way. It's nice to interact with you. I'm starting to remember your faces or your names. I mean, who couldn't love a beautiful face like that, Grant? Forum possibly. Yeah, Forum Energy. They've got a lot of production upside. Very cheap market cap. I've covered the stock a lot. I've talked to the CEO. We've had newsletter sellers tell people to literally what to sell the stock for, to basically crash the stock down 50, 60% almost instantly overnight. And that's the unfortunate thing when you get a lot of newsletter sellers telling people to sell at a certain price. It gets kind of crazy, but definitely good assets there for sure. Possibility for that exploration upside. Deep Yellow and Bannerman. Yeah, I mean, that's always been on there. I think the CEO, Bannerman, he's obviously really good at promoting. He's a lawyer. And then having the Deep Yellow team and also their assets, Bannerman has. But that'd be a mega powerhouse if that happened. And this got a lot of likes. So target price for UEC with this merger. Now, I think I'm not really going to give a target price. I think in probabilities, especially now, this market's just crazy. The probabilities are very high for this next breakout for it to hit new 11-year highs, which would be over $7. The chart's primed and ready to go. So if we see another push in uranium, $70+ $100, I mean, I think there's no doubt with their assets now, the market's going to value them, especially when more eyes get on it. Remember, you guys watching this are a very small, tiny group. I make these videos about uranium and only a very tiny part of the whole investment sector sees this great data, right? So when they do, they're going to probably be buying our shares for double digits if we own this stock or any uranium stock, hopefully. Rick, another one, UEC goes after UR Energy. So a lot of you are thinking UR Energy's next takeover target. It is very possible. I'm going to do some more research on that when you guys really, really want that to be researched along with Peninsula, it seems. and Encore. So there's a lot more here, but I don't want this video to be too long. So in this video, give your like number and say which one of these do you think has the biggest upside. Remember to never marry a stock, okay guys? Now the overall stock market, you can see pretty much retail. Retail is what's up today. We see retail up, and non-energy metals, some of the bigger ones are up. NASDAQ, everything started to pull down earlier, and we can see uranium stocks. UEC is still around that $4 range, and down 3%, with Denison's down a couple percent. Energy Fuels was down 3 or 4% earlier. UR Energy's down almost 2%. SMR was down like almost 8-9% earlier. This is just the overall market kind of pulling it down. And then obviously crude oil. Crude oil is almost down 4%, guys. Down back to, in the 80s, low 80s. But uranium's next on that list. Uranium's going to be the big runner on this. And we can see the chart, here with uranium starting to flag up. I think it's going to break out, very soon to that next leg. And I mean, you just go back, it's looking really good, guys. It's not like oil. It's not like this parabolic move instantly and goes down. It's going to do a lot better. And you look at oil, you look at uranium. Oil went negative. Uranium will never go negative. So that's going to be it today, guys. Thank you so much for the likes on the video. Please give me your like number and tell me which uranium stock or stock you think has the biggest upside. And I'll do more detail on it on the next video.